Hello and welcome to this edition of My Two Cents Worth. This is the section on my channel where I give you my 2 cents worth on something. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit that subscribe bar, and then when the notification bell pops up, click on it. You'll be notified anytime I add content to the channel. Comment on these videos, like these videos, share these videos. This edition of My 2 Cents Worth is brought to you by God, Grace, and You, written by me, published by 21st Century Christian in Nashville, Tennessee. If you want to order copies of this book, great study source for small groups or individual study on the topic of grace. And you can order it from 21st Century Christian. Here is their website if you want to go there and order it. Or if you're more of a 20th century, maybe not quite internet savvy, you can stop by the store and visit them, 4108 Hillsborough Pike, Suite 200. And you can give them a call at 615-383-3842 if you're in the Middle Tennessee area. Outside of Middle Tennessee, 800-251-2477, or fax them at 615-292-5983. And if you happen to be in the neighborhood and want to drop in and say hi and maybe buy a copy or two of the book, they're open Monday through Thursday, 8:30 to 4:30 Central Time, Fridays, 8:30 to 4 Central Time, and then customer service via telephone is available 8 to 5 Monday through Friday Central Time, closed weekends and major holidays. If you are more internet 21st century savvy, you can get it from Amazon.com. And if you've got a local neighborhood bookstore, mom and pop kind of thing, why don't you give them a chance to earn your business? Order it through them and help out your local economy. Let's get on with this. Preparing for worship. Now, this is based off of a booklet that I wrote several years ago about preparing for worship, and I'm incorporating pretty much all of that into this video. And there's actually going to be 3 videos in this, at least 3 in this set that I'm going to produce. Now, why am I writing about this topic? Why write about preparing for worship, particularly when we're talking about Sunday morning worship and that sort of thing? Well, this is one of the reasons why. Church attendance and membership is declining across the board, across the country. The reasons for it are varied. Some of them are a little complex. I don't think they're all as complex as some of our sociologists and pollsters and people like that like to make it out to be. But we can turn it around, but it's going to take some effort. We didn't get into this situation of a declining, basically we're like a declining empire right now in the United States. We're like Rome, we're like Greece, a lot of them are going down. Is it possible to turn it around? I think so, but it's going to take effort from everybody, particularly those professing to be Christians. Now, this slide you're looking at right now represents a dilemma that many people find themselves in, because many church services, let's face it, they're boring. I'll admit that. I'll be one of the first to concede that point. Some of them I think are intentionally so. The situation I'm thinking about where when I'm preparing a sermon, I try to get song ideas to the song leader ahead of time so that he knows what I'm going to be talking about. He knows the scriptures. He knows the general theme, so he can pick songs that'll go along with it. And I was in a situation once where I had a couple of song leaders. We had a rotation of 4 or 5 guys, and a couple of them were pretty good about leading the songs, or at least getting songs on the theme that I asked for. I had one who was a young man, like he had just finished high school, and he would lead singing, and I would give him a list. He would just go in and throw the numbers up on the board and not even look at what song was for what situation. In other words, if you're about to have prayer and you're going to lead a song, pick a song that's got something to do with prayer, okay? And I'm going to get more into that, I think, in the second video. But I had this one song leader, and this was in a church, and I always thought this was kind of a joke, but actually I've come across a lot of churches, in the churches of Christ anyway, that are 2 songs, and we have a prayer, then we have a song, and then we have communion or the Lord's Supper, then we have a song, sermon, and then an invitation, and we're done. That's it. 5 songs, no more, no less. And this church was very much that way. I could not get them to rearrange the order or anything. And this one song leader, he had to start with 2 praise songs. There's nothing wrong with praise songs, understand. But what he never got, as much as I tried to explain it to him, is I'm trying to make this a unified package. So if I'm preaching on prayer, let's have some songs about prayer and about meditation. But he had to start with 2 praise songs. And I have a series of lessons that I do called Give Me the Bible. And whenever I present that series, the last song before I get up to preach is Give Me the Bible. That's the song I want led right before the sermon. And I was doing this sermon series, and I gave him the list of songs, Give Me the Bible. He led it the first week. Second week, I was watching him put the numbers up, and I noticed he didn't get it. In fact, I made a note on the list of songs. Please leave this song before the sermon. So I went up to him and I said, hey, could you Give Me the Bible before the sermon? It's a lead-in. We sang that song last week. I said, it's okay. We can sing the same song 2 or 3 weeks in a row. He didn't do it. He just would not bend. And I'm going to talk more about that when I get into the idea of what those of us leading in worship need to do. But now here's the thing. We don't have to be boring, but at the same time, we don't need to do this. Is this a rock concert, or is this a church worship service? A little bit rhetorical there. It is a church worship service. I took it off the internet on an article dealing with what is commonly referred to as contemporary worship. Now, I'm going to have more to say about that later, what contemporary worship and yes, no, and maybe as to whether or not I favor it. But here's the thing. If I can't tell the difference, if I take a picture of a church service, if you show me a picture of a church service, if I can't look at it and immediately tell the difference between a church service or whether it's a church service or a rock concert, something's wrong. You've gone too far over the line. I do not see any signs at all that there's any worship going on, other than maybe the hands in the air. But I've been to a lot of concerts where people have got their hands in the air, they're dancing to the music and waving at the performers or at each other or whatever. So that doesn't tell me anything just because the hands are in the air. Now here's a question that we get faced with. We saw the man there at the beginning saying, yeah, I don't get anything out of church, very pouty, like he doesn't want to be there. But is the worshiper, the guy or the woman or the kid sitting out there in the pews, are they meant to get anything out of worship? Good question. A normal statement or reply to something like this has something that usually is along the lines of, well, you're not meant to get anything out of it. Only God should get something out of our worship. And you're being selfish. And I'll look at some more of these excuses here momentarily. But here I will concede the point. God is meant to get something from our worship. Look at Psalm 100. He says, make a joyful shout or make a joyful noise to the Lord, all you lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know that the Lord, he is God. It is he who has made us and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Be thankful to him and bless his name, for the Lord is good. His mercy endures. His mercy is everlasting. His truth endures to all generations. Now, I learned this originally on the old King James and learned it in song form. So I always have to read it, because otherwise my mind just automatically starts going into song, and trust me, you don't want that. But notice, he says to make a joyful noise. Come into his presence with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. So yes, God is meant to get something from our worship. Leviticus chapter 7. Besides the cakes as his offerings, he shall offer leavened bread with their sacrifice of thanksgiving of his peace offering. And then look at the New Testament. Continue earnestly in prayer. Be vigilant in it with thanksgiving. So clearly we're to give God thanks. We're to give God adoration. We're to give God our praise, our glory, or give him glory. And that's what we're supposed to do. God is meant to get something out of worship. God has much to receive from us in worship. But is the worshiper to get something out of it? The person sitting out there in the pews, mom and dad and their 2.4 kids or whatever it is that are sitting out there, the retired auto worker or the retired Walmart clerk, the teenage youth group sitting over here, they're usually in the front somewhere surrounded by the youth minister, the youth surrounding the youth minister. That came out wrong, didn't it? But let's look at the question whether or not now are they supposed to get something out of it? Well, let's look at some scriptures. Let's see what some of the scriptures, particularly in the New Testament, tell us. Colossians 3, verse 16. Let the word of Christ richly dwell in you in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. Teaching and admonishing who? One another. Have a look at 2 Timothy chapter 4. I charge you, therefore, before God and the Lord Jesus Christ, who will judge the living and the dead at his appearing in his kingdom, preach the word, be ready in season and out of season, convince, rebuke, and exhort with all long-suffering and teaching. Notice, number one, the preacher needs to be ready. And number two, he is to convince, rebuke, and exhort. Who is he convincing, rebuking, and exhorting? It's not God. It's the people sitting out there in his audience. Put these two passages side by side. Colossians says, admonish and teach. Over here at Timothy, he's told to convince, rebuke, and exhort with long-suffering or patience and teaching. So if the worshipers are not constantly being taught from Scripture and convinced of its application in their lives, if we're not being rebuked of sin and exhorted to good works, then they've gotten nothing out of their worship to God, and that's an hour of their life that's been wasted sitting there. And with that point in mind, I want to go back and look at the complaint about getting nothing out of worship. He doesn't get anything out of worship, he says. Is the worshiper meant to get something out of worship? My answer to that question is a somewhat qualified yes. I do believe the person sitting in the pew is meant to get, or in the chair, or whatever it is you've got in your meeting facility, he is meant or she is meant to get something out of worship. Now, when the complaint is made or the question is asked, typical answers to this concern are, well, you only get out of it what you put into it. You're not meant to get anything out of it. Only God should get something out of our worship. And if you want something out of worship, you're selfish or you're just looking for entertainment. Some of these might be true on some level. I'm going to address the first one here in just a minute, that you get out of it what you put into it. But just because someone says they're not getting anything out of it doesn't mean they're selfish. I've sat through church service. Let me rephrase that. I have endured or tolerated church services with bad singing, preachers who were clearly not prepared, or maybe were prepared but really didn't have anything to say. You know, there's two kinds of people: those who talk because they have something to say, and those who talk because they have to say something. And I've sat through 30 or 40-minute sermons that were more like after dinner speeches or motivational rah-rah, the kind of thing I would expect if I was at a self-help group. And there was this, that maybe a reference or two to Scripture, but there was nothing telling me how to use it, how to apply it to my life. There was nothing encouraging me to stop sin or to keep on in some good work or anything like that. And then the entertainment aspect. Yeah, I just had a conversation about a month ago with someone who told me they were visiting kind of long term and then decided to go back to where the church where they came from because I just have to have the music. He's a guitar player. He's been in some bands and I just have to have it. Well, that's lame. I'm just going to be upfront with you. You don't have to have a band. Okay. And in his case, while I think there was some aspect of not liking the music, but I do think there was some aspect of entertainment when you start getting into bands and solos and this kind of thing. I do think that can become an issue. But for the man or woman sitting out there, let's talk about them first. How should they prepare for worship? And in the second video, I'm going to talk about the people leading in worship. But if you are sitting out there in the audience, it's a Saturday as I'm making this. So tomorrow, if you're going to church, you got to consider some things. Now, remember, when you go to church on Sunday, we look at, oh, it's just church. Then we're going to go to eat. We're going to go to the movies. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. You need to reassess your thinking. If you are going to an important sales presentation and you've got $1 million or $2 million potential contract on the line to sell T-shirts to some venue or to sell car, whatever it is, don't you think you need to take some time to prepare, figure out who your audience is, and make a presentation that can win you the contract or the business deal? We tend to prepare for that. If your kid has a test, don't you want them to prepare for it? if you were going to get to go to the White House and meet the president. I mean, forget political affiliations, but that would be an honor regardless of who's in the White House. So don't you think there needs to be a little bit of preparation? You're probably going to be there for a reason, to talk about something specific. You're going to prepare your clothes, prepare everything. Now, Sunday morning, we're meeting with the creator of the universe, God Almighty, the one who allowed the occupant of the Oval Office to be there, or the occupant of 24 Sussex Street, that's the Canadian Prime Minister's house, or 10 Downing Street, or any of those places. You're meeting with the one who outranks all of them. But yet, how little preparation do we put into it or thought? So let's look at some things here and talk about our preparation. Now, if I'm not preaching and going, looking at the day, I've been a house parent, I've been a legal assistant, I've done other things, so I haven't always been preaching. I've been preaching for quite a while. But if I'm the one who's not preaching, here's some things that I need to think about. Number one is I need to plan my weekend accordingly. I have come across people who you're going to be there Sunday, and I don't know, we'll see what's happening. I don't know, might have to work. I was planning to go fishing. Let's see, the weather outside is kind of nasty. It's actually in the middle of the winter right now, so I can't go fishing. There's no golf. I don't have to work tomorrow. Yeah, I guess I will. Think about that attitude for just a minute. That really, to me, says, you know what, I've got nothing better to do, so I guess I will go to church. You need to plan your weekend with it in mind. Sunday morning from 9 a.m. to noon, let's just say, is church time. I have to leave the house by 9. We have Sunday school at 9:30, worship at 10:30. We go out to lunch. We do whatever we're going to do. I've got to plan my weekend. Block that time out, just like you would your work time, school time, or anything like that. Now, sometimes, you might have to go to work. I do appreciate the fact that our police, fire, and doctors and people who run the power plants and like that, I appreciate the fact they do work on weekends and holidays and things like that. So, but if you've got a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job or something like that, take some time off. Make sure that you have it on your weekend schedule. Secondly, on Saturday, get a good night's sleep. Now, I'm not as young as I used to be, but I can remember the days when I would be out with friends and come home, and I don't think I ever actually did sleep through a Sunday school class. I might have, but I can remember, no, I got to be there. And so I would roll out of bed, maybe grab a quick cup of coffee and go quickly to the church building. And I'm sitting there in a zombified state because I stayed out too late. Fortunately, I didn't drink alcohol or do anything like that, so I didn't have any of that effect. But I have known people who've done that, or they don't show up at church. They're out at the late show, and then they come into church. You weren't in Sunday school? No, I decided to sleep in. Or they sleep in the whole morning. Yeah, I'll be there tonight. And then they don't show up. So make sure you get a good night's sleep. If you would go to bed at 11 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night on a work night or a school night, don't treat Sunday morning church the same way. As important or more important than a work night. And go to bed at a comparable time. Now, if you have to be to work at 7 or 8 in the morning, most church Bible classes or Sunday school don't start till 9 or 10 o'clock. You got a couple of extra hours. Sure, you can sleep in a little bit more. And so there's really no reason to oversleep and miss services. And then take time to study your Sunday school lesson. Now, most Sunday school lessons, I don't know, mine is, it's out of my reach. It's over there. It's a quarterly that we're using. And we have a rotation of the guys that are teaching the class. I've got one coming up. But the lessons in there are maybe 4 or 5 pages long. I could actually read them if I get up early enough on Sunday morning. I can read them while I'm having my coffee or my breakfast. You don't need to spend huge amount of time at preparing your Sunday school lesson. 30 minutes probably could get it done if you were to sit down and turn off the TV and the radio and everything and just do it. 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, you could get it done. You could probably get it done on a Saturday evening while you're watching your shows between commercial breaks. I don't recommend that, but it could be possible to do it. I recommend putting aside, like you would study for a math test, put aside any distractions and concentrate on the lesson. And then get your clothes ready. How many of us, we might do this even on work days, you're pulling through the closet trying to find something to wear. Is this clean? Yeah, I think it is. We throw it on. Okay, guys, if you're still wearing ties, we're fumbling around at the last minute. Mom's trying to get the kids ready, and you're yelling at everyone, "Come on, let's go! We got to get ready. We got to leave." It's 9:30, and it's okay. Come on, we're getting ready. It's 9:40. It's 9:45, and you got a 20-minute drive to church, and you're leaving at 15 minutes before class time. Try Saturday night, and this may mean you have to shut the TV off. But we've got all this technology to record your TV shows, and probably I'm just gonna say most of the stuff on TV is not worth watching anyway. You'll either catch it in reruns, or if you miss it, so what? It's not gonna affect your life all that much. But pick out some clothing. I got an array of things here. Depending on your congregation, and are they still a dress-up congregation? Like right here, I've got a suit jacket, and here's a tie. Here's a dress shirt. And over here is kind of one of my more casual shirts. Your congregation. Most congregations are going fairly casual in dress, so you don't have to get a lot of money on expensive suits and ties. Pick out whatever you're comfortable with. Iron the shirts. Make sure it's clean. Do that Saturday night, maybe Friday even. And speaking of ironing, don't go rolling in looking like you slept in the shirt for the last 2 or 3 nights. Get an iron, take the time. It doesn't take very long to iron. I know people hate to iron. It doesn't take very long. And iron and make yourself look, just make yourself look presentable. And then make sure you've got enough time to get prepared, have your ties set out, whatever it is that you are going to be wearing that day. And arrive on time, preferably a few minutes early. If Sunday school starts at 9:30, be there by 9:15. If you are a teacher, be there by 9 o'clock. I've got a 9-year-old, and sometimes when I take her to class in various places I've been, I'm waiting for the teacher. I can't get to my class, and I'm waiting for the teacher to get there. And sometimes there's 2 or 3 kids in there with no adult supervision. If there's no adults in the room, then stay there and make sure that someone is there to keep an eye on it. Plus, if you arrive late, that's just flat out rude. So be on time, be a few minutes early. Maybe you can even start the coffee, and some of you, if you're milling around, you can have a cup of coffee while you wait. Whatever. Again, check with your leadership on that. But be there a few minutes early so we can start on time and then try and finish on time. So what do you think? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Let me know if you are one of those people who's perpetually late. Why are you perpetually late? If you're not getting anything out of church, let me hear from you. If you think I'm off base, off the rails, all wet, whatever, let me hear from you. Leave your comments in the comment section below. In the next video, we're going to look at the worship leaders. Yeah, preacher, I'm going to be talking to you. Song leaders, prayer leaders, and anyone who's got a leading part in worship. I'll be talking to you in the next video. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Hit that subscribe bar and hit that notification bell. We'll see you in the next video. I'm out of here.